Namaste. You can hear me? Did you want to put that filming sign out there, Beck? Nobody's.
Hey, we're getting ready to go live if you want to fix Chris's laptop.
If I want to, sorry?
If you want to fix Chris's, yeah.
Yeah, I was just waiting for it to go live.
All right,
All right.
bye.
And then we go crash. Yep. Oh, Becky isn't.
Okay.
Five, four, three, two.
Cheers. We are live in the studio at Feast It Forward. I am Katie Hamilton Schaefer, and I am super excited to be actually, for the first time in, geez, Becky, what has it been, like 8 years? Actually hosting my own show. Up to this point, I have just been kind of the side gig, asking the questions to chefs and musicians and talking about how they're inspired and what drives them and how they cook and feast it forward. And so my show is called Family Style. I am not a trained chef by any means. I am a home cook, and I am proud to be a home cook because I feel that there are so many incredible chefs out there or home cooks out there that can dish up something absolutely amazing. But for me, Family Style is about creating dishes that you can make at home that you're not threatened by. I have been in the kitchen with Jacques Pepin and Rick Moonen and Roland Passot and Cindy Paulson, and through osmosis, essentially, I have learned tricks of the trade, and I cook every night for my family, my husband, my little girls who drive me, and I think it's very important to create dishes that they can be inspired by, that they can cook in the kitchen. So Harlow and Quinn, if you're watching, don't make me cry. But I think it's also very important to take your children to the grocery store and properly introduce them to produce and products and not just serve them food on the table. I think it's also important to integrate them into the kitchen. My little girls are foodies. They actually love to cook with me, and they will be joining me occasionally on this show. But we're going to kick this off with my spin and my version of a carbonara. I am not, again, a chef, but this is my version that will allow you to cook in your kitchen. I think it's super tasty. There's a lot of tweaks and additions from a vegetable standpoint that you can learn and introduce veggies to your kids. My girls, if they were here, they are completely bacon kleptos, and so they would be probably demolishing the entire plate of bacon that I will have out on the counter. Now, if you are gluten-free, you can certainly use a pasta substitute for that. If you are vegan or vegetarian, unfortunately, this show today is not for you. I am introducing a lot of yummy bacon, but also vegetables. And so we are going to start. Let's see. So first things first, I've done an initial bacon ahead of time because I know you probably don't want to be watching me just sit here cooking bacon all day along with pasta. I would suggest if you're having a dinner party, you can do the pasta ahead of time. So it's sitting in a pot, dress it with maybe a little olive oil or, for instance, grapeseed oil, which I will be using today because it has a higher heat component to it. And this little fun spoon, I thought I'd introduce my grandmother who passed away recently. This is what she used in the kitchen all the time. I will be using this on an ongoing basis because this just reminds me of family and the importance of being in the kitchen and bonding and being together. So let's begin. And also wine. Let's talk a little bit about wine. I love wine. For those of you watching, all of my friends and family know that. I think also for me, cooking in the kitchen is somewhat of a meditation. I thoroughly enjoy just kind of decompressing. My mind goes at a million miles a minute, and when I have a little wine and I have a knife in my hand and I have my family surrounding me, it's so much easier to just like chill out. So we are going to start with an onion. This is a knife. That's a knife. That's a huge knife. This is very sharp. Analon, thank you. This dish I'm going to basically do for, again, family style, one big dish. If you have a huge onion like this is, I would use half of it. If you have a medium onion, I would use the entire thing. So, and again, you know, I'm going to be chopping not in a masterful way. Half of you folks at home that love to cook, you know, you're not Jacques or Rick in the kitchen, neither am I. So for those of you professional chefs watching me or Raina downstairs watching me, don't laugh at me. It's my knife skill, and again, don't be threatened by the fact that these are dishes that you can cook at home. And so anyway, we're going to dice this up, and I'm going to start our induction burner. This is fun. Monogram, who has fitted our entire kitchen here. And you'll hear a little buzzing, but that means that it is working. Again, grapeseed oil, salute to sante, higher heat level here. And we could certainly use a non-stick pan, but I am going with a stainless from Analon. So we'll let that heat up a little bit. So I've got this onion here. I'm just going to, you know, roughly chop this. My girls love onion, they love garlic, they love vegetables in general. Again, if they were here, they would probably be plowing these peas. These are fresh peas. The typical carbonara does not call for peas. It also calls for spaghetti. And the typical carbonara is also pork, egg, and cheese. And so these three components meld together. I'm doing a completely different version of that. Integrating peas, you definitely still have the egg, you have Parmesan, and of course bacon, or pancetta if you wish. So we're going to let that heat up. Eggs, let's talk about the eggs. These should be at room temperature. You don't want to pull these directly out of the fridge. It's important to introduce these in the kitchen well before you actually cook, because if they're cold, they will typically coddle. And then I'll also talk to you about the trick, in my opinion, that I use from an average everyday cook in the bowl, so you know that you're not going to scramble these, because you're introducing heat to the egg, and all of a sudden it could be very thick and coagulated, so we don't want that. So we're going to start this guy up. This bacon that I did in advance, again, if you're doing a dinner party, if you would like, you could do a majority of this in advance and then introduce some of the bacon that I will be cooking and rendering down, because that bacon goodness, if you don't eat meat, I'm sorry, but this to me is pure happiness. I love you, pigs. Thank you for letting us eat you. So I'll be introducing that in here, searing that, and then rendering the bacon. Also, a little note, that rendering of the bacon, I always have a dish of bacon fat and grease in my kitchen. I use it, again, don't want to be overdoing it from a high-fat component, especially with the kids. You could also use turkey bacon for this, but I just usually have a little dabble of this. Take grandma's spoon here, and I'll probably be introducing some of that into the dish itself. So we're going to turn this up a little bit. And not every single one of my shows is going to be specifically about cooking. To me, life and family is about fun and craft and just bonding and generally being together. So with my girls, yes, we will be cooking. I am by no means a baker. We might be doing a couple of those baking segments, but from a cooking standpoint, I think that we'll be doing some cooking, crafts, talking about, in general, having fun together. So as this heats up, we're going to talk about just some herbs. If you have a mason jar handy at home, any extra herbs that I use from a dish, I typically just toss in there. This actually was last week. We filmed with Chef Hal Yamashita live in the kitchen, and he brought in some green shisho leaf. And so I just literally stick them in a mason jar, close the top, stick it in the corner. Sometimes you can hang them upside down, certainly in your kitchen, but this is my little handy go-to. And so we'll do that with kind of a fun little sprinkle. And for those of you watching, I hope you have a little wine in your hand. I don't know, call me Julia Child, but I, again, like to drink and cook at the same time. We've got a yummy little Oberon Sauvignon Blanc here. I'll be cooking with that as well. These peas you can get at Trader Joe's, but I suggest a very fresh pea. You can also get them at Whole Foods. These are hard. I do not like using frozen. Typically, once you defrost the frozen pea, I feel like it's a little too saturated and dense, and it adds a little bit too much liquid. So again, do what you want, but I would prefer to use a fresh pea, if you can look at that. Lovely. All right, so we're going to get this on high heat. This is a half of an onion, a large onion, or if you have a medium onion, certainly you can do the whole. This typically is not called for in a carbonara, but I like to add it in, and the entire intention of my show is to do something that can introduce vegetables for your children, also have a hearty meal, and at the same time, an easy go-to for you. So I know some friends are cooking, or watching, excuse me, at home that want to cook some easy dishes. We're just gonna wait for this to heat up a little bit. And this would be the perfect time to introduce some of this bacon fat. I know I will have a great deal of this left when I sear off this bacon in the pan, but it, just like oil from the bottle or grapeseed oil, is a much lower fat, but I like that intense flavor and a little bit of richness. Comment too if you're watching right now and you want to see a dish for me to introduce in the next show. Would love your feedback. Don't critique my knife skills, but would love your feedback on what you might want to see me cook. Okay, we're going to add in these peas. So once this is a little bit brown and you're starting to see a little translucency, which is meaning that they're starting to cook a little bit, so they're not as raw, we're going to add in them peas. And while that sits, okay, egg. My girls would be breaking these, and half the time there would be shells in there. I think it's a good thing for your kids to be in the kitchen and get their hands dirty with you instead of just trying it and learning around the table. If Jacques were watching me right now, see, I just dumped some shell in there, but that's okay because it happens. Jacques would yell at me and say, you don't break it on the side of the pan or on the side of the bowl, and you break it right here on the cutting board. But whatever works for you. Sorry, Jacques, the second one was good. And their peas are popping out. And I don't want to cook these completely through. I just want to give them a little heat. When I introduce them to the pasta, we'll want these to be al dente. 2 eggs. Yes, they're raw, but they will be included into the pasta at a heat that will cook off any issues. Obviously, don't go get eggs that have been sitting outside for hours. We don't want any salmonella in our dish, but simply enough, you're going to add 2 eggs to the bowl, and this recipe will be online. We'll be adding it to our website. We'll introduce it in a blog, I believe, on our feastitforward.com. Parmesan Reggiano, whatever type of cheese you'd like in your dish. My girls love Parmesan, and the standard carbonara calls for a Parmesan Reggiano. This is, I believe, around 2.5 cups. I love cheese just as much as I love wine. And we're going to do this in advance and let this sit because we're going to end up adding in the pasta. So I would do this while that's cooking off, and then we'll put this aside and let it sit. Let that go. I'm going to place this aside. And I have a little broth handy. I'll probably use that to kind of scrape off some of that yumminess of the pan at the bottom when I finish up the bacon. Of course, we'll cook with a little wine as well. And in the pasta that you see that I did in advance, we've left a little bit of that pasta water at the bottom of the pot because of the actual gluten in the pasta itself, the carb that will enrich and thicken the pasta. You can kind of add that to the dish itself. Okay, so you can see, if you can see here, you know, these peas are starting to get a little color. We've got the onions starting to cook down, a little translucency. But I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to add this in here. My girls love peas. They love broccoli, they love asparagus. And I think that's due to the fact that my husband and I cook for them and introduce vegetables early on and take them to the store. I think that if they go to the store early on and they understand that they can't goof off in the cart, you know, I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. Yes, they goof off at the store, but I think that they respect going there enough now that when we get back to the kitchen, they don't feel, you know, they feel like they're a part of something. All right. So we finished with the peas, the onions. We've set that aside. I do have, as I said earlier, this bacon that I did in advance, which you can do in advance in general, but I'm going to take some of this yummy bacon. This is just a applewood smoked thick bacon. This might stick to the pan initially, but don't worry, this is going to start rendering and that fat is going to be super tasty, and it smells so good. I understand vegetarians. I respect them, but again, I love my meat. I'm not going to use all this. I'm just going to kind of slide those puppies in there and wash my hands. It is important when you're cooking with the kids in the kitchen to wash their hands in general, rubbing their nose with snot and whatnot. But especially when touching raw bacon. I'll pull this aside. And we have the pasta that I did in advance. Certainly can do this in conjunction while you're cooking at home. I always do a full box of pasta, regardless of what my ingredient calls for, my dish calls for. If you do that, I think it's important that you dress the pasta with some sort of oil. Had I just dumped this out and left the pasta sitting there, it would all thicken together and you'd have to separate them individually. So if you do this in advance, I just took a little bit of the Salute Sante. What are you doing there, buddy? And it's okay, they'll get stuck for a little bit, but this is not meant to look pretty. This is meant to taste good. And I'm just rendering that down with the good fat. So I want it to get brown and all yummy. So as I was saying, the pasta, if you douse that with some oil and then put it, you know, set it aside. If you can see in here too, there's some pasta water that has fallen to the bottom that I will use within the dish to kind of thicken that up a little bit. So Feast It Forward, Becky and I started about 8 years ago. We were traveling around and interviewing a lot of chefs and musicians and actors on the red carpet, which then turned into this whole concept of how people give back and feast it forward in their own lives. You know, what's special to me about what we're doing is we are a platform offering these talents and diamonds in the rough, people that are rising above the rest and offering their talents to us, can talk about how they give back, how they pay it forward, their initiatives. When we go live in the kitchen, it offers us the opportunity to host people behind the scenes that have purchased tickets, and that goes directly to the charity of choice for the musician, chef, whomever it may be. But we do have produced and edited shows that we have been working on for quite a few years. Chris, our creative director, just finished Chefs at Home, which is a series that we just launched with Chef Jacques Pepin. And we hope to be traveling to more chefs in their homes and feature what they are doing and how they are hospitable and like to cook in the family's kitchen. But aside from that, we have a multitude of shows, and we hope that you visit feastatforward.com. We hope you visit the studio by Feast at Forward. We think we have a really fun thing going here at our flagship in downtown Napa. Woo! I'd turn on the fan, but then you wouldn't hear me. All right, I'm just going to take a little fork here. I want this rich and dark. And I'm going to use this bacon fat to cook up the peas. I didn't say this was a healthy eating show. I did not say this was for you on a diet. I apologize if you thought that I was cooking a healthy fast meal. This is intended to be a yummy, rich, tasty meal. Certainly, we'll be doing some fun dishes with the kids that are more healthy. But aside from the bacon itself, you've got peas, you've got onion, you've got cheese and bacon. But I just wanted to do something fun that my girls love. They love bacon. They love being in the kitchen with me. That's what's important. So while that's finishing off, I can turn this down too. I love this induction burner Monogram. Thank you so much for fitting the kitchen here. This is very fun. So we'll let that render down a little bit more. In the meantime, I'm going to take this bacon that I cooked previously, and I forgot about my wine. And I will probably get these a little bit darker. When I do my bacon, I always take it off. Well, it depends on the dish. These are going to be a little bit darker because I want to crystallize and darken these up a little bit. So this bacon that was done in advance, I can just chop that up. We probably won't use this one. This one isn't so happy. So I'm going to leave that on for a second. But I do want not all of this fat, but some. So let's see. This is the, yes, I know, I'm coming back to you. So you can see the difference here. This will turn into this when it actually cools off, and you can leave this out. I, again, have it aside my stove. I use it very liberally, but I do use it. Okay, I'll set that aside. I don't know how much bacon you want to add. This is the protein for my dish, so I'm just going to chop big chunks. Okay. Be careful with your knives. This is so sharp. Pay attention. I've hurt myself in the past. All right, that wine we're talking about, besides drinking it, I'm going to get those tasty little bits at the bottom. Just kind of let that cook off. Oh, thank you, Raina. Thank you for the knife skill comments. Yes. I haven't had much wine, so let's see. So we're going to turn this up a tiny bit. Yeah, so if you have any ideas for me doing dishes in the kitchen with kids, or you have any thoughts as to dishes that you'd like me to do and do my take on, this by no means is your standard Italian carbonara. One, I'm using linguini instead of spaghetti. I'm introducing peas and onions. Didi Sorvino, Paul Sorvino, if you're watching, our good friends over there, yes, your book would be filled with the authentic Italian version of this. But you know what? This is my version. So we're going to add this bacon in here. And don't worry if you're concerned about cooking with wine with the kids. Don't be. I'm just adding a little bit to cook off those bits there, and the alcohol is going to burn off, so it's not a concern.
Stacy says, how about a wine Women of the Valley?
Ooh, a wine club and wine club with books. We actually have a cookbook club that we just launched. And Sandra Bernstein from The Girl and the Fig is hosting the first one on March 19th. And that is all, it's a book club, but with wine. I mean, I don't read. I like looking at pictures and drawing. That's my thing. I'm not a fan of books. I don't know how I graduated from college. But our cookbook club is all about introducing fun books to the consumer, coming into the studio, enjoying wine, having them do a little demo, and then you can have your book signed by that chef. So Sandra Bernstein is going to bring some copies. It's limited to a small group. That will happen once a month. And Chef Moonin will be coming here as well, who's our chef advocate. We miss you. We can't wait to see you soon. Other than that, check out our events page at feastatforward.com, and you can see all the events happening. We've got live open mic night tonight, which is going to be very fun. We should have a packed house. All right, so we're going to turn that up a little bit. Here is the bacon that I just cooked. And for the most part, all of this you could really do in advance and kind of have the mise en place, as you call it. And then I will chop this up. I just want to cook that up and get it a little more crispy because it was cooked earlier. You could also do a majority of it in the oven, 400 degrees, about 20 minutes if you don't want to do everything in the pan because it is a little time consuming. All right. How you doing, bacon? You're looking good. Garlic could certainly add. I was going to add it, but after tasting the bacon, it is a pretty potent, salty bacon, so I'd rather not add another component of flavor. But my girls love breaking these apart. Just interactive, being in the kitchen with them, spending time. It's reading a book, it's hanging out. But I think, if my girls were here, this would be gone, half of this would be gone, and they would be laughing at me and wanting to cook more. So we're going to add that. This is a lot of bacon. I probably wouldn't add this much bacon, but the fact it's on the cutting board, I'm going to. And let's see. So typically that pasta would be hot at the moment. But again, I did this in advance. Typically, this pasta would be pulled out, and it would be warm, and I would introduce the, I would introduce the egg and Parmesan. But what I'm going to do is actually take this pasta that I did. I'm not going to use all of it. And I'm going to add some in here, and then just heat it up like it was coming directly from the pot. And I actually need some tongs. That ratio is a little more than I typically would. Less bacon, more pasta, but I'm okay with it. So we're going to get this heated up a little bit. Let's see if... And if you don't like peas, don't add peas. If you don't like onions, some people are oddly allergic to onions. Don't add onions, but I think that this is a good, fun mix together. And don't be afraid to get messy. My kitchen, when I cook, is not clean. Do that afterwards. And then you wait, and you just drink a little wine. But this has been sitting here, ready for me. And no, I'm not going to do that fancy flip. I am a mom. I am not a chef. I am a cook. I like to cook. I feed my children. I feed my husband. Food inspires me. I like to drink in the kitchen. Blame me. But I am not fancy, and I think those of you that are watching, should this be a lesson for you to not feel threatened by dishes like this. Many of you moms or dads maybe haven't actually thought of making a carbonara because you go, oh, egg, I'm scared. It's raw egg. Well, don't be. So that's heating up a little bit. And it's all right. I was thinking I would have tongs, but. So if I leave that bacon at the bottom, this is heating up the pasta fine. And slowly I will introduce, oh great, thank you. Slowly I will introduce this pasta. You don't have to do it this way. I did this for sake of you not staring at me for 10 minutes waiting for the pasta to boil. The magic of television to actually have things done in advance. So, as I mentioned before, if you had the pasta ready, drain it, and then leave, I don't know, about maybe a cup or so, whatever you feel. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm actually going to take some of that pasta water. Get that cheesy goodness out of there. Just about 2 eggs, and straight up raw egg, and a little more than 2 cups of. So I'm going to slowly introduce this along with the pasta water. And I don't know why I'm wearing a nice shirt, honestly. If I would not be cooking like this at home. This is just for you guys. I'd probably be in my yoga pants and a giant sweatshirt cooking, but I apparently got something on my pretty shirt. But okay, so do you see that? I just added a little bit of that pasta water that is enriching and thickening that a little bit, so we're not cooking the egg, because that is the concern for carbonara, is if you introduce the egg to the heat too fast and it scrambles, we do not want that. We don't want scrambled egg pasta. Okay, so I'm just slowly introducing this. So we know that it's integrated enough. And why not? I'm going to add a little more. And this water with that rich gluten in there will actually add as an agent, cause an agent to kind of bind it. So if you added straight up water, it would not work. Okay, we got this. We're going to turn it down a little bit. Sorry, Quinn and Harlow. I'll bring you some home. I know that you're probably smelling it from the house or school. So now we're going to add that in. Doot, doot, doot. Okay. All right. So we've got the bacon. We're going to heat that up, and then we're going to introduce the peas. Garlic. Could add a little bit. I didn't. And I think we're getting close. So we're going to let that heat up. I've got some friends coming to eat. We're going to open some more wine, because why not? And we've got, so we have a couple of our vintner partners, our official wine partners, who, as we like to say, are the Coke can in our movie, who we love very much for supporting us and sponsoring us. Make today amazing. Well, when wine is involved, it can't not be amazing. So we're going to open a BY's Pinot. You know, this is my little introductory wine that I'm cooking with. Oberon, fantastic. Michael Mondavi project. Thank you very much. This is very tasty and incredible price point. And with the carbonara, sure, whatever, drink what you like, have a vodka and tonic. I love my red wine with dinner. And this BY's Pinot is fab. And the Gibbs Merlot. That movie Sideways did a lot for the Merlot business, actually. Everybody thinks that it debunked it, but it actually increased sales. All right, so we've got the Gibbs Merlot, the BY's, and thank you, Oxo, for your handy opener. And for those of you who have not seen our glasses, because we pay it forward and feast it forward, these are the Glass Does Make a Difference. Stotzel, an incredible partner of ours, we launched a line of glassware with all of my little doodles, talking about the story of how we pay it forward and feast. These are our octafills, and we also have champagne glasses and white wine glasses, and then we just launched a cocktail line. So, get a couple out. That's heating up. This looks like I'm a booze hound. I'm not going to be drinking all of this. Or I don't know, maybe I will. It's Thursday. All right, turn this up a little bit, and then we're going to plate this family style. And my girls love peas so much that I might actually add a majority of these on top. Set that aside. Yum, 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 yum. Should probably taste this and see if it's good. Probably rule number one. But it's starting to actually, the cheese is starting to melt. And hey, I'm not at a restaurant. I'm not eating straight from the pan. That would be a no-no, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, turn it up. Heat it. It's starting to get all tasty and gooey and yummy. That egg did not scramble. Bonus, because that wouldn't have been good. Bacon is all happy. So. Yes. All right. I know my set doesn't look pretty, but I don't care. I'm not trying to show off for you. I'm just trying to cook for you. Here we go. Ooh, ah. Now, if that's not family style, I don't know what is. That's a dish. And those peas, I'm just going to add that on top. Should be al dente. I don't want them mushy and gooey. That's why I go for the fresh peas, defrosted. Certainly you can use defrosted for other dishes, but that's not my goal. And then those, and actually, if I had some of that cheese left over, because I kind of went overboard, I would sprinkle some cheese on top. And those herbs that I set aside, just placed them in the mason jar and just kind of sprinkle that.
Harlow is watching from home.
Oh, Harlow's watching from home. I hope you can smell it. All right. Becky, get over here. She says, I was not planning on being on camera. You're going to have the Merlot. I'm going to have the Pinot. I love you.
I love you.
Watch us, Feast It Forward. Watch Family Style. Please offer your ideas, feedback. Come to the studio by Feast It Forward. Drink some incredible wine with us. This recipe will be on our site. And cheers to Feasting It Forward. Now we get to eat.
Smells amazing.